but I am going to start over. So for those of you who just joined us, welcome to episode 88 of the Hideout, where we will be discussing Web3 gaming and the Metaverse. My name is Nick Frontera. I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of Apollo Entertainment, the company behind Satoshiverse and the Legions 2029 game. We have been developing in the space now for about 4 years, beginning in 2020, where we released one of the first Bitcoin-themed superhero comic IPs in collaboration with legendary comic artist Jose Delbo, who was a huge name in this space and worked for Marvel and DC Comics before that. Now we have evolved the project into a gaming universe with our Legions 2029 game. Really high level and really quick, Legions 2029 is a fast-paced hack and slash game with both roguelike and RPG elements that is completely blockchain enabled with progress stored in your NFT metadata. That's a lot to unpack, so I think the easiest way is to take a look at the two pinned posts at the top of the space. Those are going to have trailers of the gameplay, but also lots of initiatives that we currently have going on, including our Season 1 Battle Pass and tournament, as well as our Game 7 integration with their new quest feature on Hyperplay, or Hyperplay's new quest feature, and Game 7 credits, which you can earn by completing quests and then are going to be redeemable for Game 7 tokens when they do their TGE. So really excited for that. Have had a great relationship with Hyperplay for a long time. But if you are interested in Satoshiverse of the game, check out the socials. But I'll leave it there for now. I'm really excited to get into what will be an awesome panel. I know we're waiting on a few more guests, but we can get started with introductions. So what we'll do is I'll pass the mic to one of you and just a couple housekeeping items. If you have any kind of visuals, gameplay footage, anything that you're excited about that has a visual element, please feel free to pin it to the top of the space. We love to see what everybody's doing. And then I guess give a quick introduction of yourselves, your project, what got you into the space, anything you feel worth mentioning. And then after that, we will have Spencer take it away with the individual questions for everybody and some group questions. So excited to jump in. Let's start with, I guess I'll go in order that I see them. Let's start with One Tap. Welcome to the Spaces. Great to have you on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay? Just checking the mic.
Yeah, you sound great. I think I'm the only one having mic issues right now.
Amazing. Well, hello, everybody. My name is John, or if you follow us in our Discord, I go under Cool J. Real quick, big shout out to our Corby crew that joined this AMA. Thank you guys. Love you guys. See you soon. So One Tap is part of a larger ecosystem under a company called Corby World, which is the game studio behind One Tap. They're currently in the process of taking One Tap from its current open beta, and they're on a path to doing a full release. Real quick background about me. I'm 20 years in technology, about 10 years in gaming, and about 7 years in blockchain. Corby World has been building One Tap. I think it's a little bit over 3 years now. Originally we were building games for other companies, and we decided to switch over our game studio to build our own games. And we were sitting on a pretty cool IP and lore. And so, we decided to start building that. It took us about a year to get a demo going, and we started building an audience from there, and we got really lucky. A lot of people liked the demo and started kind of following us and backing us. And when we released the open beta about 3 months ago, a lot of people already knew who we were, and they were excited to try the game. And so now we've gotten a lot of growth, and we're ready to kind of put our heads down and really work towards a full release. So those of you guys who haven't played One Tap yet, it's a really fun arena shooter. It is a 1v1 or 2v2. it's very traditional arena shooter style. So it's fast paced. It's kind of quick movements, small maps, but we've added a whole like interesting new flavor to it with a companion system, which we call pets. So basically your companion gives you the different abilities. So for example, like a jaguar gives you a dash. Now the strategic portion of that is that in order to use the ability, you have to have the pet out with you running around. And it is a really cool piece of artistry, animated and stuff. But if it's out, it could be disabled by your opponent by shooting it. And so it becomes this big old strategy on, how you're protecting your abilities and your companions, how you're using them in these, high intensive, quick movement kind of game and, into this multi-round, elimination system. So if you haven't played the one tap game, try it out. I recommend everyone trying it right now. We're still in an open beta. We're about to close it down to get ready to go to our full release. So if you haven't tried it yet, get your hands on it, start playing it. There's always somebody playing it. There's tons of tournaments going on. And yeah, that's a little bit about us. Thank you for having us.
Amazing. Well, great to hear that. It's awesome to see everyone developing these really cool IPs that are specific for this space. And I know we'll have some questions to dive a little bit deeper. I was checking out some of the gameplay footage. It looks awesome and very unique. So if you want to pin something to the top of Spaces with a trailer or some gameplay, please feel free.
All right.
But now we'll jump over to Golden Tides. Nice to have you back. Can you hear me, Golden Tides?
Sorry, I was multitasking. What was the question?
No worries. No, just introduction time. So give us a quick bit about the project, yourself, and then we'll jump into the questions after.
Yeah, I'm Mason. I'm one of the co-founders at Golden Tides. And Golden Tides is a fantasy pirate world where you hunt for treasure with your friends, but the treasure will be real. We're going to use blockchain technology to put our in-game assets in the game as treasure, as well as a potential future token. And then if we can get brand partnerships, we'll put their tokens and other things in the game. The idea is to create the pirate experience and make it real by making the value of your win worth more. And that's kind of what we're doing at Golden Tides, but we have a heavy focus on art because we want the brand to have emotional resonance. And what that means is that you need to care about the art and the characters in order for them to have value. Why would people want to collect something that's not cool, right? Why do people collect Pokemon? It's because we spent 10,000 hours inside of our Game Boys playing Pokemon, and now we have a relationship with Charizard. So I'm like trying to understand what actually brings value is really the key to like Web3 in general. And I'm like a big proponent of like understanding that things get hyped and people buy them to try and make money. But that means that on the other side of that purchase, there's one winner and one loser on each side, right? Someone who sold it wins and someone who buys it loses if it drops. And if you don't care about the asset, you're going to feel like you lost. But if you care, then you're going to feel like you got something you love. So I think like trying to understand what actually brings value to an IP is really key to a future of Web3. That's kind of like one, my philosophy, and two, a little bit about the game in an introduction.
Amazing. Well, totally agree on the philosophy. And, it's interesting. Sometimes we hear some interesting takes on the spaces about gaming and whether or not it's just about building a fun game or whether, the IP is important. And I think that, you got to kind of have both, but, it's so in this space, there's such an opportunity to, especially with kind of the niche nature of it currently, that building an IP is so fundamental, something that people love and that, like you said, creates value. So it's something we've been focused on for a long time, and it's great to see that you guys are putting that, front and center in what you're building, and definitely look forward to diving deeper. Let's jump over to Kevin with Alien Worlds. Nice to have you on. Hey, Kevin, you there?
He's also multitasking.
I think we're just all
Sorry,
having
just
mic
in
issues
case
today.
you were talking to me. I'm having terrible service issues. Was it my turn?
Yeah, your turn. If you can hear me okay. So it looks like we might be having some technical difficulties there, Kevin. I don't know if you're hearing any of this follow up, but yes, if you're hearing, feel free to jump in with an introduction, and then if not, we'll move on and we'll try to get the mic issue sorted, and then we'll come back to you. All right, looks like we're gonna get him back on and then proceed forward. So I think we've got Spencer. I don't know what's going on with Twitter today. Let's see. Actually, I see Kevin just got back on stage. Kevin, can you hear us? Interesting. Twitter is behaving abnormally today, or I guess normally for many spaces. Usually we're pretty good in our spaces. We don't have a ton of glitchiness. Kevin, I heard you. Are you there? Can you hear
I
me?
am here. I apologize. I'm having terrible service issues. I recently switched to a new cell provider. No one go with Xfinity. Don't go with Xfinity.
Oh man, yeah.
They are terrible.
I've used them in the past. It is terrible.
Yeah.
Would not recommend.
Second class citizen to Verizon. It's bad choice. Anyway, hi. Where are we?
Hey Kevin. Yeah, no, just agree on Xfinity and jump in with an introduction. Tell us about Alien Worlds yourself, what you guys are building, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Kevin Rose. I'm Chief Marketing Officer of Dakoko, and we are the main contributor behind Alien Worlds, which is a decentralized science fiction universe. So we have a series of NFT collections and a fungible token called Trillium, around which 6 DAOs known as syndicates compete for supremacy over Trillium that is allocated to each of those planets through inflation and staking. Those DAOs actually have treasuries by which they can do almost anything that you can imagine. They have taken it upon themselves to have community events, to build web comics, to build video games, all set within this shared science fiction universe that I mentioned. And over the past year and a half, we've spent a lot of time developing the characters, the lore, the technology, the cultures, the races, etc. And we actually were able to partner with a famous sci-fi author named Kevin J. Anderson, who has written for Star Wars, Superman. He actually is writing the Dune prequels with Frank Herbert's son. He has a producer credit on the Dune movies, which if you haven't seen them, they are amazing. So really diving into the rich sci-fi narrative as a foundation to build a myriad of video games, especially, but other media as well, that can leverage the NFTs that can be found within the Alien Worlds metaverse. And so it's this concept of tokenized lore, where ultimately the community itself will vote on the direction of that sci-fi universe, the canon, the story, what is official and what is not. And I think that, I heard bits and pieces before, but with Golden Tides talking about the richness of the characters and the story, and these collections of NFTs, the fungible token, these things don't matter if you don't care about the characters and the stories around them. You need to love the art. You need to love the arcs. And so that's really what we've been working on. That's as fast as I can put it. I apologize. I'm a little frazzled, trying to get connections, but happy to be here and really excited for what the future of Web3 gaming brings.
All right. Well, great to have you on, and that all sounded good and clear. So we're all good there. Hopefully it'll hold up the rest of the show. And I love the idea of decentralizing what becomes canon and giving participants the ability to vote on that. I think that's a really cool twist that I haven't heard about before. So that's really cool, and I'm excited. I know we're going to dive a little deeper into that later, so I don't want to get too deep into it now. Let's jump to Spencer, who is going to finish up any housekeeping items that I missed and then take us into the questions.
What is going on, everyone? My name is Spencer Vogel. I am the business development manager here with Satoshiverse and Apollo Entertainment. Been in the Web3 space since 2017, and yeah, been around for a long time, and excited to be hosting the space today. So, getting into some of the housekeeping items before we get into some awesome discussions with our guests here. So, one of the things that we do on our spaces every week is we do a giveaway, and this week we are going to be giving away a 5 Satoshi's crystals, which is one of our main in-game resources within the Satoshiverse. Basically allows you to upgrade your in-game items and your characters. Really important resource. So definitely want to get your hands on some Satoshi's crystals. So in order to enter our giveaway for that today, all you'll have to do is repost the tweet that I posted at the top of the space that I pinned. The tweet says "We're live." So if you give that post right there a repost, and as long as you're sticking around to the end of the space when we pick a winner, you'll be able to win those 5 Satoshi's crystals. Also, if you've not given the Hideout account that I am talking from right now a follow, we'd really appreciate it if you give that a follow. We're trying to build up the Hideout brand here right now, so would really appreciate that. Then moving into the actual format for the space, we'll start out with a question for everyone in the group. I'll call on someone to start, and then feel free to just jump into the discussion from there. Then we'll move into individual questions for each of you guys. And then at the end, if we have time, we'll do some more group questions. So I think that is everything for housekeeping items. So we will get into the first question here. And maybe one tap, you can start us off on this one. So what key trends do you think will shape the future of the Metaverse and Web3 gaming space?
Okay. Key trends. Well, I don't know if like this is really like a key trend, but I do think that as the games that are coming online are much higher, better quality than we originally had like 3 years ago, that's going to be a huge change in this Game 5 space because they're all fundamentally using the same values propositions that they were using 3 years ago. It's just now much more entertaining, which makes it more sticky in regards to like a product. And it gives it like this longevity, right? I think from those of us who are game developers and have been looking at this market for some time, it's more of like an internal trend that we kind of all been looking forward to, and it makes sense that it takes 3-4 years to see this because it takes a while to create great games. So that's one of them. The other one is one of the ones that I've been talking about for a while is really identity. Like trying to clean up some of these like bad behavior or bots kind of people that are been kind of taking advantage of some of the Web3 strategies in gaming where they're just kind of like, I think, what you would call like farming or just kind of misbehaving. Those kind of things are going to be cleaned up through better identity protocols. So you have already like the soulbound tokens coming out and they're creating these, relationship with blockchain and these games, creating like I would say like a persona or like an identity that we can kind of track. So those are the kind of trends that I'm really looking forward to as well, just kind of cleaning up the space a little bit. Yeah, that's it. That's all I had.
Yeah, I totally agree there on the aspect of we're seeing better fully baked games come out now that we're 2 or 3 years removed that are pushing some of the what I would say are more interesting uses of Web3 in gaming. We saw a lot of kind of very financially driven quote unquote games, which really felt like just, DeFi type protocols wrapped in a game scenario, but the gaming aspect of it was very simple in the early days. And now we're starting to see fully baked games that are just making blockchain part of them. For me on this question, I think that, and I say this a lot, I think that one of the things we're going to see is just a general move to digital in the world, right? I think we're seeing it. We've seen it since the invention of computers and cell phones brought that to a whole new level. I think that as hardware starts to get better for VR and AR, we're going to see the same type of paradigm shift where digital becomes more and more present within our world and the way we act on a day-to-day basis, right? I think that gaming as a byproduct of that is going to change. I think we're going to see, the traditional games that you play on a flat screen start to evolve into this genre of AR enabled games, VR games, and just much more immersive experiences, which won't necessarily need to be feature length games. I think we're going to see kind of an evolution of gaming in that respect. And so when I think about NFTs and I think about crypto, I think about just the way of creating ownership structures for the digital economy that's going to emerge. And, so I actually try to sometimes separate, what I think about as GameFi and kind of the financialization of gaming from this idea of ownership and the fact that as things become more digital and as digital becomes more important to our lives, we're going to want, certain types of property rights over those assets that we quote unquote own, but don't really own right now. And I think that crypto and the blockchain provide the potential, at least, for an infrastructure to do that. I mean, that's what got me interested in crypto back in 2017. I was working as an IP lawyer, and this idea of using the blockchain to create a tangibility layer for digital assets just makes a ton of sense as the world continues to become more digital. So I think for me, the trend is things are getting progressively more digital, hardware is getting better, and by its nature, digital things will become more important. And if they're more important, we're going to want to own them. And I think that ultimately that's what the blockchain does. It lets you own things that are digital. And I think that's probably where we go from here. I'd be really curious to know what Golden Tides or Kevin, what you guys think about this.
I think it's a really complicated topic. There's a massive amount of infrastructure built around digital goods today, like non-blockchain based digital goods. And so many people get a cut. A licensing deal can be revoked at any time. Revocation of that digital asset is not to the entire system working because people create deals that are finite in length of time. I think there's a lot of that underpinning architecture that will have to change, and probably by force, two ways. One is somebody is going to have to show them the way. So a competing app store, a competing game development company, some competing software that says, here's how it's done. And then there's likely also to be a regulatory aspect where when, you check your Amazon movie library and you see that it's just been cut in half because whatever company you've never heard of that actually owns those movie tokens, I'll call them tokens, took them away. And then it's going to take a senator to hear a bunch of constituents get pissed and then start to talk about it, and that'll take years. I think another trend that needs to happen is blockchain needs to sort of be quiet. If you look at the surveys that have taken place over gamers and game developers over the past few years, blockchain has become a dirty word with them. And I think rightly so, because what was tried to shove down their throats were things that could not reconcile a six-figure price for a digital good when they didn't really understand what a digital good was in the first place. And so they wrote it off. However, in the same breath, those same communities of developers and gamers desire the benefits of blockchain. People want to trade cosmetic items. The gaming industry is built around microtransactions today. It's built around your latest release. It is live service or bust. Now, there have been games that have bucked that trend, like Baldur's Gate 3, et cetera. But and Black Myth Wukong right now taking over the world. But by and large, games are can I milk the long tail kind of thing. So they're going to have to, someone's going to have to show up, show everyone the way. Regulation is going to have to start the conversation of maybe people should own and have digital property rights. Oh, how do we do that? Oh, it's blockchain. So that's another thing over here. And then it's having the blockchain industry realize that blockchain itself is not the goal. It is the feature, it is the benefits that blockchain provides. And let's focus on that. Stop talking about Ethereum and start talking about the games built on it, or Wax, or whatever layer one. I think so. All these things have to take place. One last thought, which I thought was interesting: AR, VR. It's definitely going to happen. The games look better. I see it all the time on Reddit where somebody's doing some like sick martial arts on 3 enemies in a VR game. But the interesting thing is our homes are not designed around VR. The spaces that we occupy physically are not designed around virtual reality. And the evidence of that is when you can find a compilation of people with a VR headset on, smashing into their TV, going through a glass window, or running into some other furniture. So I think that as all of these other key pieces of infrastructure change, there's going to have to be a slow drive to redesigning the spaces we occupy, where you have a VR space in your home that we currently don't. So super complicated. I'll stop rambling now, but it's really interesting to think about all these different avenues.
No, and I think that's, all spot on. I think that was very well put. I think there's a couple points that I want to dig a little bit deeper into. Sorry. I guess one of the things that you said just at the end with the VR and AR in these spaces, I think it's totally true. And we do need to see the hardware, not just on the headsets, get better, but whether it's the treadmills that let you rotate in different directions, or something that's going to suspend you. I don't know what the at-home version will look like. What I can say is, if you go to Dubai and you go to the mall there, and you go to their virtual reality theme parks, you can kind of start to get a sense of what it's going to feel like in kind of dedicated environments before it enters in our home. And I think there's going to be a pretty big period where the best VR experiences are not experienced within the home, but in dedicated environments, just like you would go to a movie theater to kind of experience the pinnacle in entertainment right now, or at least not right now, but what it was before. For a very long time, that's where movies were best watched. And I think, some people would say that that's still where they're best watched in terms of the technology and the sound and, that dedicated experience. So I do think we're going to see both homes and, dedicated spaces really start to blow our mind. I'm actually really excited about it on the art side. I think we're going to see some creativity that really pushes the bounds of what we've seen before. I think that there's some applications in the home, even if you're just sitting on your couch. I'm excited potentially about seeing, for example, esports, where, you can be in a VR headset and watch from a different view, right? Like the live renderings of a game being played. Maybe, it's a game of FIFA, but you're sitting on the touchline watching the game rather than, the zoomed out view of the player. I think there's a lot of really cool things you can do with 3D rendering engines and VR that are going to take the esports industry forward, even if you're just viewing and not participating in the game. But then I wanted to touch on another point you made about licensing. And I think that's one of the most interesting things, right? And just the general idea that there is a very cushy infrastructure that games and game developers and digital asset producers have gotten used to, as well as IP holders, where everything occurs within this closed system, right? And the closed system allows things to function. It keeps the lawyers comfortable. It keeps the regulators comfortable. And we have this kind of schema to do this. I do think that, at least the way I think about NFTs, and the regulatory schema that would need to kind of come to be around them to support things like licensing and sub-licensing, is at least we do have the physical space to look to. And I think we can draw, at least legally, we can draw a lot of analogies between the tangibilization of digital assets on the blockchain and how the asset becomes separated from the IP rather than in the digital space, the asset is the IP. And I think that we have that in the physical space. For example, an example I give sometimes is, if we have a T-shirt with a Superman logo on it, everybody knows that they don't own the Superman logo by buying that T-shirt because the asset is separate from the IP that's on it. In the current digital infrastructure, the only thing that you can own is a license or a sub-license of the IP itself. So in theory, and you're not really owning that, you're being granted that, right? So if I play a game, I'm only going to get this little piece of whatever the IP is to play in the game, right? But then, in theory, with the blockchain, you can have this token that's completely separate from the IP that references the IP, and you can own that token without any rights other than that license to the IP. And so now you've kind of got a schema that looks very similar to the physical world. And I think regulators and judges specifically who are trying to make sense of complicated regulation are going to be able to look to, 20, 30 years of precedent on the physical space and draw analogies there. That's just kind of how I see things potentially playing out. Go ahead, Kevin.
I'd love to pick your brain later, because we have the semblance of one of the first, I know there are other people trying to do it, decentralized intellectual properties, where this idea that the tokenized lore where you're voting on the canon, that is in stark contrast to how Star Wars lore works, for example, where if it's not done by Lucas Entertainment or Disney, it is not canon. And in fact, some of the canons like Young Jedi Academy and things, were thrown out when Disney spent however much ungodly amount of money they spent on Star Wars. So, that's multifaceted, but how do you govern, from a legal sense, a multi-contributor intellectual property? Is there technology that can support keeping track of that if rights are moving back and forth as freely as tokens move on the blockchain? I don't think that it's currently there. But this idea of participation in the fun part, which is the story itself, and getting people involved in that is one of the first steps to say, oh, look, the juice is going to be worth the squeeze when we figure out how all this works. And you can experience it right now. So we're really excited about tokenized lore and what we've created with Kevin Anderson. And I think that's what we're trying to do is to try to break ground in some of that licensing IP work, probably far down the line, not today, but we're starting.
Yeah, and I love that. And I won't dive too deep in the weeds now, and we could definitely have a sidebar on that. But I think the idea of DAOs as legitimate organizations and companies that can own IP rights could make a lot of sense for something like, decentralized IP ownership, where you do have a voting infrastructure on, on an entity that has essentially a centralized ownership, right? A single point of ownership, which is the DAO, the entity. And then you have means of determining what happens and how that IP is used through this underlying, DAO voting and governance. I think we've seen a little bit of progress there, in DAOs starting to be recognized by different states, at least in the US, as organizations that can have these sorts of rights. I think that's going to progress in the future because there's something really interesting there. And I think that's one of the big challenges in the IP space as things do become more decentralized. So yeah, definitely a really interesting issue. And now I can feel Spencer looking at his watch saying we need to move on. So a great conversation. I'll kick it back to Spencer to jump into the rest of the questions. Unless anyone's on the edge of their seat itching to say one more thing, feel free to jump in.
All right. Well, I'll take that as the cue to move us along. So, first individual question will go to Kevin, actually. So, you talked about this a little before, but Alien Worlds has a DAO structure where players can pledge their TLM cryptocurrency towards a specific planet and vote on different proposals. So what do you think are some of the different pros and cons of involving players in decentralized governance and having them influence, development decisions and things that go on in the game?
Sure. So I'll try to make this quick. So first, we're not actually allowing the syndicates that they're called to directly influence the development roadmap, for example, of Dakoko. that is separate. They are voting specifically on what to do with their own treasury of Trillium, and what they choose to do is entirely up to them. And that's, I think, where we see a lot of the pros and cons. So here is a pro would be speed. You can have a project funded very quickly, but a con could be that if it's a project of substantial size, the syndicate custodians, the governors that they're called. So you actually are staking to a particular custodian who then sits on like a little board, but the turnover of that board is every week. There's new election every single week, right? So a con there would be if you have a large project, like a significantly large game being developed with a lot of resources, having a relationship with a DAO that changes its leadership potentially every single week is a pretty precarious situation to be in. You don't feel very safe as a business to be able to do that. And so we're actually implementing a dispute resolution and escrow system that will sort of sit alongside the existing DAO infrastructure in order to accommodate that. And just in general, and then I'll just stop. You can go on DAOs pros and cons forever, but the ability for a DAO to create a complicated software product itself is not really there. They are able to create relationships with groups who can create complicated software products or other products are complicated. Bringing a product to market is complicated. Organization is not a DAO's strong suit. Governance and that the direction of the token treasury sort of reflects the token holder body in a transparent manner, that is its strong suit. So lots of pros and cons, but you still require systems that look like what we have today in legal systems or traditional companies to be able to do complicated products in order to make it all work. But a DAO really is the only organization that can interface with a blockchain based token. Period. That's the only kind. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. So moving on to our next individual question, which will go to Mason. So Golden Ties has been hosting a number of game nights and tournaments recently. So how do you think Web3 games can benefit from community activities like this? And what do you think are some other effective community engagement strategies? Hey, Mason, we got you there still? All right, we'll try to get Golden Tides back, but in the meantime, let's move on to one tab.
No, I'm here.
Oh, got you.
Sorry,
Okay.
the CEO called me, so I took the call. My bad. I had to hang up on him now.
All good. Do you want the question one more time?
Yeah, throw it to me.
Yeah. So you guys have been hosting a number of game nights and tournaments recently. So how do you think Web3 games can benefit from community activities like these? And what do you think are some other effective community engagement strategies?
I mean, the Web3 community is a very knowledgeable community on marketing, and I think the idea behind making something resonate with a lot of people requires a lot of people, and that's kind of like that Web3 community aspect still applies even if you're just helping build a brand, because it takes all of us to communal human knowledge is what creates IP. Right? Like, we all know what Lord of the Rings is. We all know what Harry Potter is. And then we all know what Pokemon is. Things that resonate with all of us. That's how you get that global feeling. And it does require a lot of marketing efforts to get these things out. So applying Web3 and value-based assets definitely gives people incentive to market.
Beautiful. Appreciate the response. And then finally, last individual question will go to One Tap. So in general, what do you think Web3 can bring to the first person shooter genre?
Well, we're hoping it brings new levels of competition. So what we try to do under One Tap or kind of like the Corby World mission is to create competitive games. I guess what you would call like esports styles games. So in competitive gaming, there's like these really cool values. So you're either trying to grab a prestige position within a leaderboard or a rank system, or you're trying to monetize it. Uh, like, uh, maybe you're going pro as an esports player, or you're doing a lot of streams because you're really good at the game and you have a really good prestige position within those leaderboards and people want to kind of watch you because they want to learn from you. In Corby World, we try to mimic a lot of those scenarios with our tokenomics. So we tend to kind of reward people depending on where they are within the ecosystem, whether they're fans or they're participating, in the game, at a PvE level. If they're participating at a PvP level, then it's even higher. If they're participating at tournaments or, things that are much more visible, and then, the rewards are even higher. And we call this system, esports capital. It's basically we reward you based on your participation levels and mimicking kind of some of the real world scenarios, but expanding it to be much more inclusive. Like, Corby World's part of a bigger organization called Core Gaming, and Core Gaming owns, competitive esports teams and players. And so we tend to kind of be in that industry and understand that not everybody gets an opportunity to monetize on their skills. And specifically, they don't get the opportunity to monetize on how much time and effort and money they spent into a competitive game to try to get into these prestige positions. Like, think about like the last big competitive game you were a part of, whether it was Leagues or Valorant or, whatever, Mortal Kombat. Think about how much time you spend into getting into those leaderboards, climbing through the systems, watching all the pro players, trying to get all the tips behind it. And that effort, that time, energy, money, that you spent, we call that esports capital, and we tokenize that and we reward that depending on where you are, right? And the reality, guys, is the more you put into it, most likely the more, the higher you're climbing through the system, right? So, I work with a lot of pro players, and so pro players, they're dedicated to that game. I mean, it's 10 hours a day, every single day to be able to play at those levels. And a lot of them deserve the monetization that they're getting. And so we're mimicking that within Corby World and esports. Does that make sense to you? Like what we're trying to do there?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I think, on an industry level, it's really cool. Like it's a really interesting take on the infrastructure and, more, maybe even more than from the perspective of an individual IP. It's something that huge IPs could apply, to essentially, as a layer on top of what they're already doing, with tournaments and everything. I think it sounds really
Mm-hmm.
cool because I mean, at the end of the day, those streamers and everything, it's all about eyeballs, right? And that's where a lot of the monetization comes from. And you have to have games that are, either streamers who have huge followings or games that have huge followings. And usually you need both, right? To make that wheel spin. So it's an interesting way. I guess where it strikes me as really interesting is actually the potential to make things smaller, right? To incentivize that maybe you don't have to be a huge pro gamer or whatnot to still get some sort of piece of the earnings and to develop all these, micro content creators and reward them for participation. That makes a ton of sense. I've seen some other blockchain projects doing some interesting stuff, first person shooters specifically. I don't know if you guys have considered this, but with direct skill-based rewards for the games themselves. So like a staking, everyone puts up a single token and then you get a token per kill type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really interesting. I think that for me, kind of what you said, there's the competitive elements, but blockchain as a technology has some really interesting use cases in skill-based gaming, because it allows this peer-to-peer aspect, right? Almost like a poker table. shooters can become poker tables. I don't know that that's the right model for every game, but I think there's, I guess, kind of taking what you said and kind of extrapolating, there's ways to use blockchain to drive engagement that can benefit kind of the traditional system or be layered on top of the traditional system, but also kind of create opportunities for people a little bit further down the chain to kind of start to build a following or, a game in this space, which may only have 1,000 players, to still have something useful that they can use to drive engagement.
And that was the trick, right? So the win to earn scenario, I think that's kind of like, that's an easy explanation when you explain it. We do have a flavor of that, like within our leaderboard system, or what you would call like a rank system. We have multipliers depending on where you are in the rank system. So most likely if you're at the top levels of the rank system, you're potentially earning more than anyone else. But the reality is if you're there and you're staying there, the level of commitment that you've given to the ecosystem, the game, I mean, you're not just playing the game, you're playing it with friends. So you're talking about it with people. You're probably posting online. Look at me. I am a top ranked person. And that value is what we're really rewarding. Yes, you're doing well in the game and you're winning, and we're giving you more because you are winning. But but the winning came from your effort, right? It wasn't like you weren't born being able to play one tap. You built up to that momentum, and maybe you're a great FPS player and that's what got you there. But to stay there is the commitment, right? And so it's easy to reward the people who are at the very highest level. Like they're very visible, they're always on. Where we really spent a lot of time figuring out is how do you reward esports capital to those who are, watching the streams, right? Maybe they're a casual player, but they love to watch the streams, or maybe they're a casual player, but they always join the tournaments, right? And those are the tokenomics that we really took a deep dive into and figured out how to kind of reward that. And what our system does, and if anybody who's in corporate world now or plays one tap, they know this almost immediately. We're constantly giving you things when you start participating. So if you're playing, you're probably getting a loot box or you're getting a badge, which has like everything has in-game value. Everything we do, by the way, like if you have a loot box as a skin, immediately you see a skin in the game. If it's a badge, it's either like a gun charm or a custom sight, and you can see it in the game. If somehow you join one of the raffles, you win a pet, you see it in the game, right? But then also these things have these outside values. So if you're hanging on to these things, you can immediately stake them and start earning the rewards. That's how we kind of covered all these bases. The more you do, the more we give you, the more we give you, the more you can hang on to them and earn the rewards. When you're done with us, one day, we don't expect everyone to play one tap forever. But when you're done with us, then, dump your inventory somewhere in the secondary markets, get the best you can for it, and you'll stop earning the rewards, right? But if you never dump it, you'll continue earning those rewards, forever, right? For as long as you can. So it's kind of like a cool little system. And think about this, like competitive games, like AAA, big studio competitive games. Think about the value they earn from every single person in their ecosystem. From the person watching the streams of their favorite content creator or influencer to the person playing at the highest level, professional level. That publisher of that game gets all that for free, right? They're not rewarding on a regular basis everyone who says something good about their game or participates in.
So you cut out for me at the very end there. I'm not sure if it cut out for everyone or if it was just my Spencer, did you hear the last part of that?
No, I missed the last part of that.
Yeah, so I'll put myself on Do Not Disturb. Sorry about that, guys. So the point is that the publishers are getting what we call in corporate world esports capital. Big AAA studios get that for free. And people talking about their game. I mean, think about, if you've ever posted anything online about Call of Duty, Mortal Kombat, huge IPs, huge games. They get you marketing their stuff for free. And what we do simply is reward you for it, right? Depending on whatever level you're at.
I love it. No, it's a great approach. And, it's again, kind of going to your point at the beginning of the space, we're starting to see the use cases of blockchain in gaming evolve more than just, the financialization of doing certain things or grinding, really. And I think that it's really cool to see that. We are getting towards the end of the hour, and I know we've had maybe one guest drop off, so I do want to wrap it up to be mindful of everybody's time. But before we do that, let's see, because I know we have a giveaway that we are running, and I don't see the winner, so we are going to have to pick that winner, and we will be back with that very shortly. But in the process, I want to just thank every single one of you here for being on the panel. This is something, again, that we do every week, and it's always a fun time, having excellent guests for this panel, and we work hard to make sure that the quality of the guests never disappoints. So thank you guys for being such great guests and taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and jump on this spaces. To everyone who joins live, it's always a pleasure to see all of you in the audience, and we do really appreciate everything that you guys do, taking time out of your day, participating by commenting on the post, retweeting. We see all that, and we love it. And, there's not really any kind of financial angle to any of this. So, we're just doing it because we love to see this space grow and share ideas. So your support means the world to us. And we really do appreciate all of the people who come and come live or watch the recorded versions. I know there's a lot of people who watch the recorded versions. Thank you for participating today. And let me see if we have our giveaway winner. Yes, we do. All right, so the giveaway winner for the Satoshi's Crystals today is Wonder, WUNDER, or Wonder at Wonder786188. So this is a new name for us. So I'll give you the quick rundown. If you could just DM. So all you're going to have to do to claim the crystals is create a Legions 2029 account on our website, game.legions2029.com. It's super quick, takes about 30 seconds to create the account. And then if you just DM us with the name of that account from your Twitter, we will deposit the crystals into your account, and you can get started with playing the game with some crystals. So congratulations to Wonder. Again, thank you so much to the speakers. What I'm going to do now is just open the floor to the speakers in case you have anything you want to plug or just any closing words. Let people know where to go to participate in the project. And then I'll wait about 30 seconds. I'll just say something to wrap it up and then wait 30 seconds because there's a slight delay. And then I will close the space. So I think we just still have one tap. I think people have the busy schedule. So one tap, if you want to close with anything, feel free. And then I will wrap up the space.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for having me, everybody. Thank you for listening. Come and check out OneTap at playonetap.com. We're currently in an open beta. Hurry up and get it before we do the closed beta because it's going to become an invite-only system for a little while we're heading towards our final release stages. Come and enjoy all the free assets that we're kind of handing out at this time and look forward to seeing everybody. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll wrap up the spaces now and see everybody next week.